right, jumping into it. This is 100% Straight Fire, episode 12, the Pythagorean Theorem, probably the most popular formulas of all time in math. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. But even though it's the most popular formula, it's often misused. Pythagorean theorem can only be used to find a missing side of a triangle if you know two of the other sides. And you cannot use it on any triangle. You can only use it if there is a right angle. It has to be a right triangle. Well, most students actually do remember that. The Pythagorean theorem can only be used in a right triangle. I find that a lot of students forget that you can use the Pythagorean theorem to find the hypotenuse, but you can also use it to find one of the legs of the triangle. Sometimes we know what C is, and sometimes we don't. Pause the video if you have to and read the question if you haven't read this already. And if you are one of my students, you would have already tried this question before watching this video. So pause the video anytime you need to, stop and read the question. But here's the answer for question number 1. We're looking for the distance in feet between the stake and point X. So we're looking for this distance here. And I'm going to put a lowercase x there to stand for the distance. Looking at the sides that I have, I could call this one A. Then this one would have to be B. And this one, no matter what, has to be C. The 20 is the hypotenuse for sure. And the quick way to find the longest side of a right triangle is just go diagonally across from the right angle and you'll find the biggest side. So the way this question sets up, it would be A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And probably you've had enough experience at this to know that all you have to do then maybe is use the calculator, or maybe you know them by heart. 12 times 12 is 144. 20 times 20 is 400. And this question has 2 steps remaining to solve for the missing side. One is subtracting the 144 from both sides, and that gets the x alone. And then you're one step away from getting the x completely by itself. You still have to get rid of the squaring. To get rid of the squaring, we do the opposite of squaring, which is square rooting. And you get that x comes out to be 16 feet. Taking a look at the answer in the picture gives us confidence to know that, yeah, this could be 16 feet because this side here is 12 and it looks smaller, and this side has to be 20, which is the longest side. So we know that this side here cannot be 20 or greater. So it gives us a good idea that the question is answered correctly. All right, pause the video if you have to on the second question. Maybe answer the question before you actually watch the explanation. On this question right here, here's the answer. So unpause it, and here I got the A as being 75 and the B as being 30 feet. And I'm looking for how far it is from pole 1 to pole 2. Without even doing any work, you could just cancel out some of these answers, which completely would be incorrect. So we're looking for the longest side. It's the hypotenuse, so it certainly can't be those two. It has to be bigger than 75 and bigger than 30, so it couldn't be either of those two answers. So now we're down to just choice 1 and choice 2. Even at this point, you could guess at what the right answer is, but let's use the Pythagorean theorem to find out exactly. We would do 75 squared, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And you can see in this one it's different than the one above because we are actually looking for C at this time. So you could type this all in together into the calculator. 75 squared plus 30 squared comes out to be 6,525. And in this case, we're trying to get the C by itself. So to get rid of the squaring, we would square root. And the answer comes out to be about 80.777477211. And the question is asking to the nearest foot how many it would be, and 81 feet is the rounded answer. All right, on to one more question. I think the last question I made was a little bit more difficult than the first two. So this question I selected, it says, Kimmy wants to determine the radius of a circular pool without getting wet, as long as no one splashes her. So this is a bird's eye view of what the pool looks like. It's a circular pool. She's located at point K, and she's 4 feet away from the edge of the pool, as shown. And it says that she is 12 feet away from a point of tangency shown in the picture. So this segment here is tangent to the circle. And anytime you've got a segment or a line that is tangent to a circle, it always makes a right angle with a radius that is drawn from the center to the point of tangency, and that's what that's called right there. So even though there wasn't a right angle in the picture, the fact that it says that there is a point of tangency is a way of telling us that this angle here is a right angle. All right, so let's figure out our pieces here. We're looking for the radius. We can call that our A. We already know that B is 12, and C would be all of this right here. So if I'm trying to set up the equation, like I said a minute ago, this question definitely has a different start to it because of the more advanced labeling in there. So it would be A squared would be R squared plus B squared, which is 12 squared, equals C squared. Well, C is the radius plus another 4 feet. So you're going to do the radius plus 4 feet squared. So that's our equation, and we can try to simplify it by just multiplying 12 times 12 and get 144. To simplify r plus 4 squared, it would be r plus 4 times another r plus 4. That's often a big mistake that's made in algebra. Many students think that r plus 4 squared would come out to be r squared plus 16, and that's just not true. So students will think that that's what it should come out to be, and it's wrong, because when you take an expression and you square it in math, it means to take one of these and multiply it by another copy of whatever is being squared. So as it turns out, you'd have to use the FOIL method here to figure out what the right-hand side of this equation is when simplified. So we'll leave the left side alone, r squared plus 144. When you use the FOIL method and multiply the first two together, you get r squared. Make a little separation there, equals r squared. Multiplying the outer two together gives us positive 4r. Multiplying the inner two together gives us another positive 4r. And multiplying the last two together does not give us an 8. It gives us a 16. All right, now it's just going to be about combining like terms. And you probably could do it in fewer steps, but I'm going to show it worked out as slowly as and step by step as possible. The 4r and the 4r is 8r, because some students don't like to take it too fast. Okay, trying to get r by itself. Well, one thing we can try to do is move the r squared from one side to the other. And when you do that, something really great happens. The r squareds disappear. So you'll end up with 144 equals 8r plus 16. And you just have to continue to get r by itself. So let's subtract 16 from both sides. Giving us 128 is equal to 8r. Divide both sides by 8. It comes out to be exactly 16. Which is one of the answers here. Let's take one last look at those choices and see, could we have actually answered the question without doing all of this work? Well, I think you can get pretty close to feeling comfortable about the answer looking at the pictures that are here. Looking at the picture and how it's labeled. 32 feet for the radius. Well, these aren't necessarily drawn to scale, but most of the time they are done on the exam in scale. So if that's 12 feet, this actually looks like it's not too much different than this measurement right here. So thinking that it could be 32 might be a mistake right off the bat. Thinking that this is 12 and this would be 20 also seems a little bit out of scale. So you could cancel out probably 2 and 3 just by looking at the picture. As far as 4 radical 10 is concerned, some students will pick that as the answer because it's the one that looks different. And that's an okay strategy, I guess. When I type this into a calculator, I get about 12.6. So at that point, it's really hard to tell. I mean, maybe by looking at the picture, maybe this actually does look like 12.6 instead of 16. So sometimes the looks and the scale on the picture can deceive you, but in this case, at least it gets us pretty close to either of those two answers there. Of course, the work actually shows it off pretty well as well. Another option you could have done before you actually solve the whole thing is you could have made the equation and then you could have plugged in 16 into the equation and tested it out and see if it actually did work. And if you plug the 16 in, you get 16 squared plus 12 squared is equal to 16 plus 4, which is 20 squared, and that would check out. You'd get 400 equals 400. So that's another way to middle it, to not figure out the entire answer, but use the choices to help you work through it. Well, I hope this continues to help you out, and we still have a few more episodes left to go, but we're through the halfway point, I believe. So keep on working hard and continue to do your best. Have a great day.